Welcome to week 7 and our final week of groups. I sure have enjoyed our time together, and I know you've enjoyed your time in your groups, and this is going to be a great week as we wrap up our series here in the book of Hebrews. And the author of the book of Hebrews was writing to a discouraged church, to discouraged Christians who needed encouragement and uplifting. He spent all of chapter 11 talking about the kingdom heroes who learned to live by faith and what that produced in their life and in their influence and in their eternal rewards. Why did we spend so much time going through the lives of these heroes? Was it because they were perfect? No. It's because they were flawed people who still made it into the Hall of Fame. He did it because of chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. He wants to apply the principle of living by faith to his New Testament church based on the Old Testament saints' accomplishments. And guess what? You and I are a part of this New Testament church. Hebrews 12:1 says this, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." Verse 2, "Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and the perfecter of faith, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God." Verse 3 says this, "Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart." And so he says in chapter 12, verse 1, we're surrounded by this cloud of witnesses. You know, when I was a kid in a Pentecostal church, when the preacher wanted feedback, he would say, "Can I get a witness? Is there anybody here who will give testimony to this truth that I'm talking about?" That's what the author of Hebrews is doing here. He says, I got a witness, and I got more than one witness. In fact, he says, I got a whole chapter of witnesses who can give testimony that living by faith works. He says, these witnesses surround us. There's another dimension out there, those who've gone on before us, whose job it is to be in the stands, encouraging, supporting, affirming our race, cheering us on, that you and I would finish strong this life of faith. In that dimension, they give testimony that in this dimension where we live, where we work, where we play, where we have fun, we raise our families, where we go through trials, where we go through tough times, they give testimony that we can end as a victor and not a victim, that we are victorious. Do you know that in boxing matches, before the fight begins, sometimes they'll take past champions and they put them in the ring and they let them shake the hands for both of the fighters. The point is to let them know, I've been here, I've done this, I've gone through this, I've gone through 4 rounds, 5 rounds, and I've been victorious, and that you can be victorious in this battle and you can win. And that's how it is in our life. Those that have gone on before us, they're cheering us on, saying, I've been there, I've done that, and you can do it, and you can make it. So whatever battle you are in right now that's discouraging you, that's holding you back, that's challenging you, I want you to know that others have fought. Others have gone through it. Others have come out winners. They've come out victorious. The witnesses give us a testimony that you and I can make it to, that no matter the valley, how low it is, no matter how hard it's been, you can focus and hear those people that have gone on before you and that you're going to get through this and you can win. No matter where you're starting from, no matter where you're at, this is what you must do. Listen to those that are cheering you on. You're going to make it. After learning from chapter 11, he says you must lay aside every encumbrance and sin, every weight. Now, weight is not necessarily sin. It's just something that slows you down or it holds you back. When a runner gets on the track to race, man, they take off their warm-up suit because they don't want to be slowed down by anything. Swimmers will even cut their hair off their chest so that nothing will slow them down when they're in the water. In other words, is there anything that's limiting you from moving forward? Is there anything that's slowing you down? Have you become a passive Pentecostal? Have you become dormant or stagnant? He says no. He says get up and you get going again. You've been knocked down, but you're not out. You can get up. That's why you have a cloud of witnesses in this dimension. That's why you have a local church family that loves you. That's why you have your community group. They can pick you up when you fall down. When you're discouraged, they can encourage you. When you need strength, they can strengthen you. When you're weak, They're going to help you. So don't throw in the towel. Don't give up, but you keep going by faith. He says, lay aside every weight, every encumbrance. And then he says, in the sin that so easily besets. So I don't know if he's specifically talking about sin and all sin in general, but I think he might be talking about the great sin in the book of Hebrews, which is that. It's the sin of failing to trust God. It's the sin of failing to believe God, to believe that God is enough, and to act like God is telling the truth. When it doesn't make sense, when it goes against culture, when it goes against everything in our society, but we still walk by faith, believing and living like what God said is true. So he says, put aside your unbelief and start walking by faith. Start living by faith, believing that God is telling the truth and that his ways are right. Even when it goes against what you think, when it goes against how you feel, when it goes against the culture you live in, he says, lay it aside. It reminds me of a college student who took all of his dirty clothes and he put them in a sheet and he tied the sheet and he put the sheet in the washer. Well, you know what happened? All of his dirty clothes still came out dirty because he had wrapped them in one thing, and that one thing affected the ability to deal with the other dirty things that he had put in the washer. So you know what happens when you have unbelief? When you fail to trust God and act like he's telling the truth, it affects everything else. And the other things you're trying to deal with and you're trying to get rid of, you're unable to get cleaned up because they're wrapped in unbelief. The refusal to trust God. They're wrapped in the refusal to trust God. So he says, focus on chapter 11. Focus on all those people who have been where you're trying to go. Read their stories. Take the principles from those stories. Apply them to your life because they weren't perfect, but they succeeded. Focus on yourself. Get rid of those things. Get rid of those systems and probably even some people who are slowing you down or holding you back. And let's start living by faith. Let's start living that we believe what God is saying is true and not by unbelief. In Hebrews, he says that we're to be looking unto Jesus. Verse 2 says, the author and the finisher of our faith. Look at the winners, look at yourself, but most importantly, focus on Jesus. He is the author and the finisher. He is the A to the Z. He is the Alpha and Omega. He's everything in between. He says, you know what? Get a piggyback ride on Jesus. If you stick with him and you stay with him, he's going to bring you to the finish line. So keep your eyes focused on Christ, because the one who got you started, the one who got you started is going to bring you to completion. He's not going to leave you partway. He's not going to leave you halfway. Even if you're in a weak spot, even if you're in a failure, even if you have things that you regret, he's not going to leave you there. So stay with Jesus. Keep your eyes on him. If you put your eyes back on Jesus, because the devil doesn't want you to look at Jesus, so if you put your eyes on Jesus, he will take you from where you are and he will take you to the finish line. He will take you and you will have your own statue in the Hall of Fame. So he says, look unto Jesus. Sometimes when I'm working out on the treadmill, walking, jogging, which all of us, including me, I probably need to do a little more, I'll turn on something on my iPad and I'll watch a show. I'll watch preaching. I'll watch a church. I'll listen to music. Because if I am thinking about jogging on that treadmill too long, I get weary. It gets boring. I get exhausted. I get off before I need to get off. But when I'm able to focus on the news, I'm able to focus on a show, when I'm able to focus on a sermon that I'm watching, other than focusing on the treadmill, you know what? I'm able to go farther. I'm able to stay on there longer. I'm able to go faster because I'm not letting my circumstance on the treadmill define where I'm going to be. So he says this, look unto Jesus. I know you can't ignore the reality of your pain, the reality of your problems, the reality of your difficulty, and the reality of your challenges. But I do know this. He says, keep your eyes focused on Jesus. Why? Because he's the author and the finisher, and my God will get you across the finish line. He goes on to say that he wants you to understand that from Jesus' perspective, it says, for the joy set before him, Jesus endured the cross. Wow. The road of suffering Jesus took on his way to the cross for you and I. How could he do this in his humanity? He didn't want to suffer like that for the sins of the world. He says in his flesh, he said, let this cup pass from me. He was weary in his flesh because it was such a daunting task that he was called to do. But it does say for the joy set before him. You know, Friday he knew was going to be a bad day, but he also looked to Sunday. That was going to be an amazing day, a great day. So you know how Jesus endured the cross? He kept looking at Sunday, even though he knew he couldn't skip Friday. I know you can't skip where you are. I know you can't skip the crying that you're in and the pain you're in. I know the disappointment you're in. I know maybe you're unhappy where you are. I know that you're struggling right now. But I want to tell you, there are people that have gone on before us, and then you have to look at Jesus Christ and the joy that was set before him. I want you to know there is joy set before you. Look beyond where you are. Look beyond your current circumstance and thank God for where he's going to take you. Thank God for where you're going to be. I want you to thank him for how he is going to take you and the mess you're in, and he's going to turn it into an amazing miracle. I want you to thank him for how he is going to take the lemons that you have right now, and somehow he turns it into lemonade. I want you to thank him that he can hit a bullseye with a crooked arrow. I want you to thank him for what he's going to do in spite of our weariness, in spite of where we are, in spite of our failures. And he concludes this, he says, for consider him. So he still wants you to focus on Jesus. Consider him who endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you will not grow weary and that you will not lose heart. That you will not grow weary in this life and you will not lose heart. So he says, I want you to keep your focus on Jesus. And if you do that, it will keep you from quitting. It will keep you from giving up. He says, don't lose heart. We go back to the theme of Hebrews, discouragement, and all of us have for a lot of different reasons. There was a little girl who was given a gift for her birthday. It was a 500-piece puzzle. She got frustrated after hours of trying to fix it and put it together. You know what? She was losing heart. She wanted to quit. She called her dad, frustrated, upset. It's just too hard for me. It's got too many pieces. I'm not old enough to do this. I'm not grown up enough to do this. That's when the dad showed her the picture on the front of the box. It was a picture of Jesus. She said, I want you to work on the puzzle, but I want you to keep your eye on the picture. And as she kept staring at the picture, all the pieces started to come together. What was once frustrating her and causing her to lose heart was now being overridden because her focus was on the picture, which allowed her to handle the puzzle. I know right now in life, it may be a difficult puzzle. It may be disjointed, disconnected. It's not coming together just how you think it should come together. But can I challenge you with something? During this time, keep your eyes on Jesus, because if you'll focus on him, he'll enable you to deal with the puzzles of life. Over the many years of ups and downs, the ups and downs of marriage, the ups and downs of parenting, the ups and downs of family, the ups and downs of your career, I am reminded that God has a hall of fame, and he has a statue with your name on it, and he wants your faith in it, and he wants your face in it. He wants your portrait, your statue in it, because you decided to not take the exit ramp. You didn't get off. You decided that I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to be a kingdom hero because you are faithful to God. May God bless you as you start where you are. So get up, keep going, don't lose heart, because I know I see victory in sight for you. I want to say a huge thank you to all of our group leaders and host homes and coordinators for making this semester of community groups so wonderful. And I want to thank you for your time and your sacrifices for being faithful in your group. And I am sure you've grown in your walk with God. And I look forward to worshiping with you again this Sunday. God bless.